Thank you for coming. It's really great to see all of you here. I'm Colleen Ammerman. I'm the director of the Gender Initiative, and I'm going to give a relatively brief talk, just kind of an overview of what's been going on, what we've been doing over the past year and a half or so since the initiative launched, what's happened at the school since the W50 year, and then I'm going to turn a little bit of a preview of what we have coming up, and then I'm going to turn it over to our faculty chair, Robin Ely, who's going to talk about the latest results, literally hot off the presses, from our Life and Leadership After HBS study. So I'm just going to start telling you a little bit about the initiative. So the initiative officially launched in May 2015. And our mission is to accelerate the advancement of women leaders and promote gender equity in business and society. So we do a number of activities and programs and are undertaking a number of projects to try to serve that mission. It's really all built on a foundation of the research and insights that our faculty at HBS are producing. So this is our team currently. So aside from me and Robin, we have two research associates, one of whom, Liz Johnson, is here today. And so they work not only on the Life and Leadership study, but also on other research projects. And then also Bethany Vanderwald is here today, and she works with me on our communications, our digital content, event planning, et cetera. So that's our team currently. Probably will be expanding a little bit in the coming years. As I mentioned, really the foundation and the core that we're building on is the work that our faculty are doing and the research and the insights that we as the initiative are trying to bring to the business community, to leaders, to organizations, and really to society more broadly. So I'm really happy to say that now, as of this year, we have 30 faculty at the school representing 9 of our academic units who are engaged with the initiative. It's a really diverse and robust group. So that is everybody from kind of our core faculty affiliates whose primary research agenda has to do with gender or with diversity and inclusion more broadly. Also, those who maybe it's not their primary research stream, but they have a project or kind of a secondary stream related to this work, and we work with them to try to figure out how to enhance that work, how to get it out there, and how to build on it. And also faculty who may not do research in this domain, but who are really engaged in thinking about these issues in their role in the classroom or in their institutional role. So it's a really amazing group. I'm really proud to have all of these faculty connected to us. And I did want to give a special kind of shout out to our 2 newest affiliates who are new to HBS, joining the Negotiation, Organizations, and Markets unit this year, Katie Kaufman and Christine Exley. So they're both behavioral economists, and they're our newest community members. And then also, this year, for the first time, we have 2 visiting senior faculty coming to HBS this year. One of them actually is here today, Kathy Tinsley, visiting us from Georgetown, who's going to be actually kicking off our first research seminar of the year next week. So she's going to be here this fall. So I do want to say a little bit about what's been going on, particularly since the launch and over the past year. So like I said, we had this official launch moment, even though we kind of came into being earlier that academic year, but kind of went public in the spring. And I think some of you may know this, with the launch, we really didn't want to just have kind of an announcement, right? So HBS is doing this, great, good for you. So we wanted to actually have some substance behind it. So we chose to tie the release of several brand new pieces of research to the announcement to really kind of get the right message across that we are intervening in this conversation because we want to help the conversation be grounded in knowledge and grounded in research and not in stereotypes and not in, some kind of assumptions or conventional wisdom that, is not always either accurate or helpful. So I hope some of you might have seen the coverage of Kathleen McGinn's Working Moms research on the positive impacts of working moms on their children's later in life outcomes. We were really happy with some of that coverage in the New York Times and elsewhere. So we tied that to the launch, and also some of Robin's own work on reasons for why we still have gender gaps in leadership, and then also some of the first findings from the Life and Leadership study, which we're going to be updating over the course of this year, and you're going to hear about today. So that was a launch. Since then, there's actually a number of other things that have come out, and I just want to highlight kind of some of my favorites. So Amy Cuddy is one of our affiliates, and she's best known, of course, for her power posing work, but she actually released a new study this year on gender stereotypes across cultures. That's really fascinating, and these are all links in the PowerPoint, and so we're going to make these available afterward, these slides, so you can access this stuff. Another junior faculty member who's an affiliate, Lakshmi Ramarajan, has a new HBR on kind of looking at the consequences of what are now these, it's very common to many organizations, kind of the high intensity, long hours, high demand, always on culture. And then Christine Exley, who I mentioned before, had a recent post on HBR on their website about when women opt in or don't opt into negotiations that I think is quite fascinating. I do want to say a little bit about cases because I know that that is a pretty important topic, probably to many of you. It's really important to me. It's something that has had a lot of discussion around it, particularly since the W50. And I'm actually working really closely with one of our men faculty who's engaged in the initiative, Boris Greisberg, who's an expert on many things, including case writing. He and I are working really closely with the dean's office to kind of think about what the school can be doing, what's actually happening in our classrooms and in terms of faculty case writing, and how we can move forward on increasing the proportion of women protagonists. So I do want to just point out, so since the W50, about 200 cases with female protagonists have been written by HBS faculty, and I'm just kind of highlighting a few here that are really recent that I think are really cool. And this first one I just want to point out on Carla Ann Harris. The link in here is actually not to the case itself, but to an episode of HBS's Cold Call podcast, which I don't know how many of you have heard about, but it is a really cool series where our CMO, Brian Kenny, interviews faculty about their cases. And so this is a really great conversation between Lakshmi and Brian about this case. It's a fascinating story, Carla's story, and so it's a really great episode. That's some of the research from really just the past year and a half. So also this past year, we held the 4th annual Gender and Work Symposium. So that's an annual research conference, and we have a different theme every year where we kind of ask the people who attend to grapple with and have a sustained conversation about. And this past year, our theme really focused on language and narrative and discourse. A couple of you were there, and we had a really interesting and inspiring group of speakers, not just scholars, but also some entrepreneurs who are thinking about diversity and language in the products they're building. Some really great journalists, a performing artist, and again, all of this stuff is available online, so you can check out all these presentations, including this performing artist that we had speak and also give kind of a mini version of the show that he does. So, our big media push was really around the launch, but since then we've continued to kind of develop and refine our media strategy, and I just want to point out kind of a couple of, our most recent pieces of coverage that I think are really strong. So the first one here is this invited op-ed in the Washington Post, really trying to kind of break down some of the myths and misconceptions about why we see fewer women in senior roles. And then the second is some of Robin's research on masculinity, actually, and gender norms in organizations on Invisibilia, which some of you might know is a really pretty cool podcast from NPR. And then finally, these are some of the more kind of public-facing and alumni-focused events from this past year. A couple of collaborations. The first one with our neighbors across the river at the Women in Public Policy program at HKS. So a panel discussion on the intersection of business and policy with Sheila Marcello, an HBS alum, and Kirsten Gillibrand, and Representative Rosa DeLauro. It was a great discussion. Another collaboration with our colleagues here at HBS at the Digital Initiative, screening a documentary about the gender gap in technology. We had a great discussion after that. And then also this event of our own, which we produced in New York City, that was a faculty panel discussing the gender pay gap and pay transparency. Really trying there to build on research to sort of communicate what are things that women can do in their own careers, what's kind of some practical insights. So we were really pleased with that. So those are some of the highlights from the past year. And I'll just, before I turn it over to Robin, talk a little bit about what's in the pipeline and what's coming up primarily this year. So our new website is going to be launching very soon, hopefully in the next 2 to 3 weeks. So that's going to be pretty easy to find, just hbs.edu/gender. So there's going to be a lot more content there. We are going to be having, in collaboration with our alumni relations colleagues, some regional convenings for women in Boston and in a few other cities this year. And then also we're developing some kind of virtual programming for those alums who may not be able to get to one of those in-person events with HBX Live. So the first one actually is coming up on October 6th with Amy Cuddy, and that's going to be open to Alumni Club's members, but we're going to be rolling out with more faculty some more programming with HBX Live over the next year or so. The executive education unit is actually launching a program this fall called Women on Boards, and that is geared toward women who are senior women who are well positioned to step onto a corporate board and helping to position them to do that. So that's actually happening at the end of November. It's the first iteration of this program. We'll be hosting the 5th Annual Gender and Work Symposium in the spring, and then we're actually also creating a new conference this year that's focused on women in investing. And finally, this is just some of the research that's kind of in the pipeline that I'm excited about, that you may be hearing about over the next year. So this top one, Boris Groisberg and Paul Healy have some really interesting findings about executive compensation and gender gaps there, and kind of unpacking what's behind that. Linda Applegate has been doing a lot of work on women entrepreneurs and actually has a project interviewing female founders of highly successful companies and trying to understand what contributes to their success. Katie Kaufman, one of our new faculty members, has a new study forthcoming on trying to understand the effects of sponsorship, the kind of programs that companies often implement to try to advance women. We're also looking at collecting data on women in leadership in public companies and hoping to make that available on our website as a resource. And then finally, throughout the year, we're going to be kind of rolling out new findings from the Life and Leadership Study. So I'm going to turn it over to Robin. These are the brand new, you're the first people to see these new results, so we really are excited to share them and hope you'll have some interesting kind of thoughts and ideas and questions that then we can take into our next phase of analysis.